Why did he choose Avicenna?
Well, we do have a nonprofit. It's a university, and it's named after Avicenna.
Well, yeah, if you remember a few years back, we decided what name to choose for the non-for-profit university we want to literally create. And there were lots of was going on there. And no, but I discussed with you that we should choose somebody who had a huge impact on human life, on my life, but as well keep that promise true to my heritage.
Hmm.
And we came up with Avicenna, or which is a Latin version of Abu Ali Sina or Ibn Sina. Who what do you know about Avicenna?
He came up with the scientific method.
That's very important. Yes, yes, but yeah, and what's important? He came with the scientific method 600 years before Europe, or 500 years before Europe came with the scientific method, and that is, I think, the most his most important achievement. And we can go through a lot of other things he did, but sometimes when we talk about the scientist and so on, the actual person get lost. It's
Yeah.
just their achievement is what in the what we remember them for. Um, what if I told you? Have you watched the Big Bang Theory? No.
No.
For people who have watched Big Bang Theory, I'm sure you're familiar with Sheldon, the genius, self-absorbed, and so on. Avicenna was Sheldon.
Mm.
So, and he with one difference. Sheldon is pretty monogamous, and sex is not in his most important thing. Um, Avicenna was like the combination of Sheldon, intelligent, and
Quagmire from
and
that TV show.
who's Quagmire?
Oh, I don't know. It's like this. Never mind.
Yeah, well, he was quite a womanizer. Now his story start with he become an orphan pretty soon, and he goes from place to place, and he's trained um, by the most brilliant mind of his time, and everybody who sees him, he sees that no matter what he does, he's good at it. He's just good at it. Now, to be now a little fair about that, most of the thing we know about Avicenna was the autobiography of him about himself.
Oh, of
So,
course.
but looking at his achievement, he wasn't far off. Same thing with Sheldon. For people who have watched Big Bang Theory, he's like the whole world is about him and so. But he's um he's brilliant. As a matter of fact, he just looking at some numbers when they are doing some astronomical things, and I found a pattern and so on, where like the other guys have been looking for years and so on.
Mhm.
And that was his achievement. He saw pattern in everything that other people weren't able to see pattern, and he put those patterns together. Now, what if I told you until 200 years ago, 600 years after his death, his canon of medicine about how to treat disease was standard learning in all European universities?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, well, I would be surprised. Nothing, no knowledge lasts more than
Yeah, but I think when it comes to stuff like
six
that,
years.
it takes so long for things to actually get
Yeah,
recognized and actually get implemented. Like
yeah,
Semmelweis, how long until people started washing hands? How
yeah.
long?
Remember Semmelweis?
How
Yeah.
long was that?
Well, that was Semmelweis was in 1800 something. That
And then when did people start washing their hands? Because it was
Yeah.
after he died. But when?
Well, about how long after he died, people. No, he came up with that idea in I think mid 1900, and then about 20, 30 years later, it was then globally recognized that yes, you wash your hand before you touch the patient after you have touched the cadaver of dead people who died of a disease.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
I mean, people do dumb stuff all the time
Yeah,
because that's how we've always done it.
that big. That's always what we have done it now. Everybody knows Aristotle. You know
Yeah,
Aristotle.
Aristotle. Yeah.
He was a brilliant mind. He came with idea that our mind can wrap um, around everything and come up with the
Yeah.
explanation. And that was actually a damnation of humanity for almost 2000 years, because no, our mind cannot wrap itself around everything and come up with the explanation. He came with the what we call Aristotelian kind of views, that you philosophically dissect something and then you follow it and then you come up. The problem there is that if you have one little flaw, you all your thoughts after that is going to be flawed. Whereas observation, empirical thing, that you have an idea, before you accept it blindly, and even if your mind says that's the way it is, like in 1800, nobody could say that the gentleman hands can transfer germs and kill a patient. What? My hand of a gentleman, maybe a lesser person, but the hand of a gentleman can carry disease. You're out of your mind. Or many other ideas that were what we call Aristotelian ideas, that our mind says this is how it is, and it is. Whereas the scientific method says you come with the idea, you put it to test, and if empirically the result of the observation says something different, then you re-evaluate your ideas and first after we put Aristotelian way of thinking in science to the rest, then we started in Europe have Renaissance, where we literally start, having empirical observation and so on. So what I'm getting at, Avicenna did that 500 years before Renaissance. Now, what did he do? He, where it was forbidden in Europe, and at the time Avicenna came up with all this idea, it was chaos in Europe. It was literally to so-called dark ages.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say like what else was happening around the world at that
They were
time.
burning libraries. That's what was
Hmm.
happening. And they were killing each other and burning people on stage in Europe and so on. And it was dark ages.
Yeah.
Um, as a matter of fact, many of those books were translated to Arabic, which was the scientific language. Avicenna, by the way, is not Arab; is a Persian. And then after they were done burning all their books, they had to come and retranslate it from Arabic to Latin and other European languages. So Arabic actually acted as an intermediary to keep the knowledge, previous knowledge. Now, either way, one of the things that he discovered is that the idea of disease, that that how there are certain things, that the idea that there are certain factors, they at that time obviously they didn't know about bacteria and so on,
Yeah.
they would call it bad air. By the way, have you heard the word malaise?
No.
Malaise is that something is that so when somebody's sick, they used to call it all malaise and so on.
I've heard malice.
Well, no, malice is something different.
Yeah.
It's as well written and spelled differently. Malaise, that's a these days they only use it in poems and so on as a
It's a little bit
thing.
flowery.
The flowery, the word for disease.
Okay.
It comes from bad air. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, bad air. Now, he discovered this bad air can go from one patient to another,
Okay.
and came with the idea that there's something get transferred in the air or by the air, but it's not the air itself that transfers that. And so, and as well, he did a lot of different observation about a different kind of disease. Like one of the things he literally discovered is that what in wine make people
Crazy, silly.
drunk.
Yeah.
He distilled alcohol. As a matter of fact, alcohol is Arabic for the al is like the is the what comes, and kohol means that the essence. the essence. Practically, alcohol means the essence of wine.
Yeah, and sometimes people still call alcohol essences.
Yeah, well, that is how he discovered that, and then he discovered other properties of that, and so on. But as well, how he approached the disease by itself. Like you need to understand at that time, some magical figures would cause us to have disease and so on.
Hmm.
But he observed and noticed that each disease has its own kind of mechanism, its own kind of uh, steps that it goes through and so on. That not that one of the interesting stories about him is that he actually start working on schizophrenia.
Oh
That he
wow.
described it about 1,000 years ago. He described, or about 1,000 years ago, he described that no, there's, this psychiatric disease like schizophrenia. There are really nice stories about that. This prince had schizophrenia, and the prince believes he's a cow, and he, instead of just he went along with it. He wanted to bring him for treatment, and he wouldn't. And he literally brings some hay and say, "Oh, they're the best hays are there.
Yeah.
Come, little cow, come with me," and so on. And then it's sort of the idea of putting the patients in the center and
Yeah, and
treating that.
yeah, listening to the kind of putting the patient in a more comfortable place where they feel that they can talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that is one of the important of his achievement. Now, most of his books were written in Arabic because Arabic was the language of the science at that time. But his most important work was the Canon of Medicine, which practically half philosophical, half medical. And if you read that book now, it sounds to us trivial, like any other book that we read from. But considering how limited the knowledge was at that point, that is amazing that somebody without microscope, without all the lab thing and so
Yeah,
on, without the
technology.
technology, with limited kind of observation of available data, could come and put that. And that is what makes him Sheldon. He looks at things and come up with a and understand there's a pattern behind it. Now, um, he practically single-handedly ushered at least the Eastern medicine in the new era. And the problem is that in Europe, um, his knowledge wasn't completely transferred to
Like
the
was it an issue with translation?
a lot of issues because Europe was busy to just kill. Europeans were just busy to kill each other. And then when they started bringing the knowledge back, it was like 400 years, 300 years after he
Mm,
would died, and so
yeah.
on. Okay, and and that was when they started translating all this book back to the Latin and other European language. And what I can tell about that, and that is why it was important in like in my culture, you learn about him from uh, kindergarten or elementary school. It is unfortunately in Europe is a little self-centered, meaning that yes, if you go and to the bottom of it, they see where that heritage come from, how Arabs saved the science,
Hmm.
like algebra is Arabic word, is from
Yeah.
another Persian guy, Al-Khwarazmi, which whose name is changed now to algorithm, or chemistry. Is it actually just means the science of turning other metals to gold or alcohol and so on. And so when you go, you see that there, but that knowledge is not penetrated to common sense that how much of the European heritage actually is carried over by Eastern science
Totally.
and philosophy.
I mean, like 2 years ago, they did this survey in schools in the like in the U.S. that said, should schools teach Arabic numerals? And the answer was no. Most
Okay.
people said they shouldn't.
So you want to explain that in details what that
Okay.
is?
Look on your keyboard, and if you see some numbers, those are Arabic numerals. That's the explanation.
Yes, that is explanation, but it's more important than that is that exactly the way it is written is a Arabic numeral. And we call it Arabic numeral because they went through Arab tradition and culture to Europe, but it was not really Arabic. It was actually by a person. His name is we call it in Persian, we call it Al Khwarazmi or Khwarazmi because he was from that town Khwarazm, which was part of Persian Empire. Obviously, again, he wrote his book in Arabic because Arabic was the size of the language. The origin of that is actually from further east, from India.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, yeah. So, um, what did Indian do? They literally discovered the number zero. All of a sudden, that makes sense. You know, the
Yeah.
110 because we have 10 fingers, and then 0 to 10, and then once you get to 10, you take the
One
first
zero.
number and bam, put a zero in. Now, those numbers, look at that carefully. There is actually the number of the angles, number of the angles in that, like one it has one angle. Two, it has the way it was written is like a two
I
angles.
see. Yeah.
Seven, for that reason, seven is actually seven and then a bar. Seven with a bar gives you seven angles. And then obviously you have the seven like it goes up, goes down, and then seven. Yeah, here. So
I
this is
never knew that. Do an
yeah
eight.
seven. No, this is one, two, three, um, then four, five, one, two, three, four, five, then six, seven, eight. Four angles here, and nine. So here, this is the Arabic numeral, the number, and zero has no angle in it. Zero angle in
Mhm.
that zero. And the way it is written actually is so-called Arabic, Indian, Persian numerals. And the person who did that, his name was Al-Khwarazmi. His name was then Latinized to algorithm. So the word
I've.
algorithm comes from his name, Al-Khwarazmi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, have
Yeah.
you heard the name? What does that algorithm mean to you?
Algorithm, like.
Following certain steps to get the same results, because that's what he did for algebra. Algebra, meaning, the force that, if you follow that, it forces you to the same result again and again. And so, okay, Europe, America, you're welcome.
Well, and it's
We
like
gave you chemistry, I'll give algebra. We gave you Arabic
it's
numerals.
just funny because the people who said they don't want Arabic numerals definitely don't want Roman numerals. Like, imagine.
Oh my God! Try to
I
do
know I don't.
arithmetic with Roman numerals.
No way.
And there were even worse things before that and so on. But no, and yeah, that is that just the ignorance level
Yeah.
of ignorance.
If
That
it's different from you, you're
yeah,
uncomfortable with it if you don't
yeah.
know it.
So
People are still like that today.
well, coming back to Avicenna, the reason I chose him for our medical university is because we need to bring this legacy back. At the end of the day, we are part of the same human um, race. We are all the same, and we need to combine the word. And I'm just going to end it with a poem from another Persian polymath. His name is Sadi, and this poem is actually engraved in the entrance of the United Nations, which says, it's very famous poem. It's called Bani Adami, meaning that the children of Adam. And I'm going to recite it first in Persian and then I'm going to translate for you. But considering as well, this poem is 800 years old. I mean, imagine at that time, in some places, people were eating people, not torturing people and raping people. That was normal.
Eight
That was
hundred,
status
eight
quo.
hundred, or 8,000?
800
Eight
years.
hundred.
Yeah. So it says بنی آدمی اعضای یکدیگرند که در آفرینش یک گوهرند. اگر روزگار چو درد آورد روزگار ام، دیگران را نباید I forgot the second part of it in Persian, but practically what it says that the children of Adam are all from same origin, and if and they are members of one body, so like arm, hands, and so on. If destiny, if the word cause pain in one area, other areas cannot be without pain. And if you, as a human, if you are indifferent to the suffering of others, you don't deserve the name of human being.
Yeah, I think that stands true today.
Well, but that
It should.
considering it is no, considering this is 800 years old, that tells you that the height of the culture that they achieved at that time, that we are talking about 1,000 to 600 years ago. I mean, our humanity has really achieved a really good status at that time, and I think that's not just a Persian legacy; that's a human legacy that we are trying to revive.
Totally, totally agree. Thank you guys for watching. We talked a little bit about Avicenna. I think we could talk about him a lot more, though. We
Eventually, we
probably
will.
will.
Yeah.
I'm Amanda Armagast.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence.
Thank you.
I couldn't remember that poem.
I don't know. I was thinking we should maybe look it up.
Hmm?
I was thinking maybe about looking it
Yeah.
up.